Hey, my name is Sean, and this is going to be the first episode in my Meta Breakers series. We're going to be playing Winconless Mardu, a creature-based stacks deck that is meant to stop Adnaz and others fast combo decks that rely on spending your life total in exchange for cards. This deck's meant to pressure the opponents while making it harder for them to cast spells. Thank you guys for watching, and hope you enjoy.
Okay, for this series we're going to start out a little bit differently than comparing our new commanders to the best commanders. We're going to kind of talk about why we play these commanders and what the point of the deck is and what it's trying to counter. So, we have our two commanders, Trin and Sylvar. They are partners, and again, I want to do this video because every other partner from Commander 20 has a deck on the database, and these two do not, so I wanted to try to build something around with them. And so we kind of built this Mardu Hate Bearers deck, especially human Hate Bearers, to go along with Sylvar's Sacrifice ability to give him Indestructible and to give him 1/1 counter. And so this deck is trying to counter these ad nauseum decks that have been kind of getting more popular as they're getting more explosive with more, especially these Commander Legends, with more new cards printed that allow them to be faster. So it's like ad nauseum effects, Necropotence, Peer into the Abyss, all cards that kind of they work with having a lot of life. You want to have a good amount of life when you activate them. Like ad nauseum, you want to be at high life total, so you can look through as many cards. Peer into the Abyss, you want to be at, again, a high life total, so you have to look through. So you have to lose. When you lose half life, you're not dropping to a point where you're potentially facing lethal from something. And then Necropotence, so you can put as many cards into your hand when you activate the ability. So the big thing is these decks have gotten a little bit more explosive since printings of cards like Jeweled Lotus, Jessica's Will, and Rogra. Jessica's Will is really good in all of these types of decks, whether it be a farm deck or whether it be a straight Turbo Naz deck. Rogra, a really good Turbo Naz commander, allows for cards like Culling the Weak and many other cards to improve, and because he's a zero mana creature that's straight out of the command zone. Then you have Jeweled Lotus, speeds up the casting of your commander, whatever your commander may be, whether it be Timna in a farm deck. So these cards all kind of speed up these Turbo Naz decks, and they're kind of getting more powerful because with Rogra's a partner, so you can put him with Salastran and play a Grixis Turbo Naz deck, and they're kind of getting more and more access to counter spells, counter magic, so it's hard to counter them as much, play the stack against these decks. Because with Rogra, you get access to Deflecting Swap for free, Fierce Guardianship for free. So you're just adding 2 more free counters to your list. It's a lot harder to interact on the stack with these decks. So this is kind of my version of a way to counter this deck in this episode. So again, I said these are the 2 commanders we're playing. And basically, we want Sylvar for the fact that he has Evasion and Menace. Depends on the deck you're playing against, but for these Turbo Naz decks, they're not going to have many creatures, especially these combo decks. And then he has Protection, you sacrifice a human, and there's a lot of humans in this deck, and a lot of the Hate Bearers you generally play in the format are humans. So this is pretty decent. Trin's not as good, but late game you can use the ability to create extra tokens each turn as a way to pressure your opponent and give Sylvar Indestructible. So, we play a lot of Hate Bearers, Dranith Magistrate, Thalia, Archon, all really good against these ad nauseum decks, because what we really want to do is we want to not only be playing Hate Bearers, we want to be attacking with Hate Bearers and pressuring their life totals. So when they remove our Hate Bearers, our stacks creatures, when they go for their Gnaws or whatever they're going for, their life total is like, instead of it being 40, or high 30s, it's high 20s or something like that. Difference between 10 plus cards. We want to lower the cards they can look at, because that lowers the chance of them hitting Underworld Breach, Lion's Eye Diamond, Brain Freeze, the cards need to combo off. Dranith Magistrate has gotten better because it effectively shuts down Jessica's Will. Thalia just makes it harder to storm off, and again, Archon, Rule of Law effect, and non-basic lands, your opponent's control enter the battlefield tapped. And a lot of these 3, 4, 5 color decks, the majority of the lands that are played are going to be non-basic lands. So it's difference between a fetch being good. Fetches are really bad against Archon of Emeria. Lands in general are not as good. And then we have, because we are a 3-color deck, and we can set our mana base up to be able to play Blood Moon and Magus of the Moon. And again, Blood Moon has that, or Magus of the Moon has that human, so it allows for it to help us with Selvar if we actually do need to sacrifice it, because we want to play with our other lands in the battlefield. So, again, really good against 3, 4, and 5 clear decks, which is what these Nas decks looking like they're going to be, and these farm decks. And so we effectively are going to shut down the majority of their mana base. And just with red mana, it's kind of hard for these decks to function because you're taking away their namesake cards, the cards that the reason they play the deck. So yeah, pretty powerful. And then we have, technically this is Winconless, but we do technically have Wincons. Elish Norn, if you can drop Elish Norn early, you can kind of secure the game. You get to -2 all your opponent's creatures. All your creatures get +2/+2. And then another combo is Tainted Pact plus Opposition Agent. The more times I play Opposition Agent, the more times I want to play Tainted Pact, because I can Opposition Agent for a Thassa's Oracle, remove a combo piece, and then I can have Tainted Pact to allow me to combo off myself with my opponent's Thassa's Oracle and my Tainted Pact. So in this deck, we do play Snow-Covered Basics and regular basics to allow for our Blood Moon mana base, and to allow for us to combo off with Tainted Pact. So if you have a hand with Opposition Agent and a tutor, you can always tutor for Tainted Pact. Try to set yourself up to win with a Thassa's Oracle Tainted Pact combo, but it is not, Thassa's Oracle is not featured in the deck. So yeah. And then we have some stack interaction. Obviously, it's hard to beat these decks now because they have a lot of counter spells open to themselves. We have cards like Silence, which if you know your opponent's going to combo off, you can cast an early Silence, at least bait out a removal spell, but that basically shuts them down if you manage to resolve it for the turn. Pyroblast counters any blue spell, destroys blue permanents, so Thrasios and Thassa's Oracle you can counter. And then we have Deflecting Squat. You can, especially against Peer into the Abyss, you can target yourself with the Peer into the Abyss and draw half your deck. So yeah. And then we have just some more creatures we want to play. Saracen cards I really like because when you cast it, especially turn 1, it's a 1-mana 6/6 with flying and lifelink. So you can pressure your opponent, drop them to 34. For an ad nauseum, that's there between 5+ cards, which is pretty good against. That's the difference between 5+ cards, which is always good. Sanctum Prelate, you can put it on 2. That shuts down Breach. That shuts down Thrasios. Shuts down a lot of decks. Dockside Extortionist. Shuts down a decent number of cards. And obviously, depending on what decks you're playing against, you can choose whichever number you want. Or wait, no, it's only non-creature spells, so my bad. It doesn't actually shut down Dockside or Thrasios, but shuts down his Underworld Breach, shuts down a lot of the counter spells that are played, so it's still pretty effective. And then we have Timna. We're in black and white, and she's also as a human, as both these other creatures do too, and it allows us to draw through our deck faster and gain some life. So kind of what we want to do with this deck is the game plan is just attack with Selvar, or get our Hate Bearers out, and then attack with Selvar. We want to be pressuring our opponents, especially the ones who are playing the fastest combo decks. We want to pressure them, make sure they can't use their life total as a resource. And yeah, that's kind of how the deck functions. It's just meant to be a deck that's meant to try to counter another strategy that's getting better. So yeah, we're going to run through one sample hand. Okay, let's see what we're going to get with our hand. Let's see, so this is definitely not a keep. We don't have, our only acceleration is a Talisman, which is a little bit slow. Obviously, if we had a turn 1, if we had some faster acceleration, this would definitely be a keep because we have Opposition Agent and Blood Moon, and we have lands that allow us to fetch for other colors of mana. So send this back, mulligan. And yeah, this is definitely a better hand. I think we have a gamble for turn 1, which is probably just going to, we don't really need any combo pieces, so we're probably just going to go search our library for a Mana Crypt. We do have Ad Nauseam. We are kind of an Ad Naus hate deck, but it's always a card worth playing, especially if you're looking for removal. Then if we do get our Mana Crypt turn 1, we can cast this Talisman also. Drop return. And actually, this is going to change my game plan completely. Turn 1 Sarah Ascendant, card I really like. Basically, because you're playing 1 mana for a 6/6 with flying and lifelink, so evasion and life gain, both powerful abilities. So we'll move on to our next turn, playing that. Tap and attack our opponent. So we're running up to 46 life. We want to attack the player who is playing the fastest combo deck, specifically the Ad Naus combo decks. And then, so yeah, we'll play our gamble. View all. Search our library for a mana crypt. Put it into our hand. And then we will shuffle. That's not what I want to do. We will roll a 6-sided dice, and we roll the 1. So we're gonna drop our talisman, sadly. And then we're gonna play a mana crypt and tap and play a talisman of conviction. So that's a little bit disappointing that we didn't get to remove one of our lands or one of these 2 cards. Mangar is pretty good against about drawing cards, but we're up on life. We can add Naws if we want, or we can just cast one of our commanders next turn. So let's move there next turn. Land's kind of not what we were looking for, but we have some options. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mana. We got to make sure we do our mana crypt flip. Okay, we don't lose life. Again, pressure our opponents up to 52 because we haven't cracked any fetch lands or anything like that. And one of our opponents, again, pressure the Ad Naus player, or pressure the Ad Naus player that's gone first, or who's most likely to win. And now we have 2 options with the 6 mana. We can try to wait and add Naus, see if we get anything, but I'm just going to play a Sylvar and begin to pressure our opponents even more. So not really the best hate bearers start, but still we have Sarah Ascendant to pressure our opponents, and we're just going to have this to pressure our opponents. So drop, return, land, play this. Play this land. We want to thin our deck of lands. Lose a life. View all. We will get a... Actually, we cannot get any... We'll get a Godless Shrine to play. Probably just untap because we're at such a high life total. One of the reasons I like Sarah Ascendant, because it not only pressures your opponents, but builds up your life. 7 mana. So we have options we can do. We can try to play Mangara, depending on what decks we're playing against. So another card that's really good against these Naus decks, because it allows us to draw more cards whenever our opponents cast their second spell, which is pretty powerful. And yeah, so I'm probably going to move on to another hand, just do one more. We're trying to sell some stacks. But Sarah Ascendant really good at pressuring our opponents, which is what we want to do. Okay, so let's get into that second hand here. And this is not a very good hand. We do have a early Thoughtseize, but still not something I really want to cast if we don't have any additional ramp. Grim Monolith is good if we're able to get it out like turn 1, but we don't have any other tutors. Knight of the White Orchard's pretty good if we have a low mana rock, because it allows us to ramp us in untapped planes. But we'll restart this, and okay, this is a really good hand. So I actually don't know if I even play a land here, but let's see what our options are. Yeah, okay, we will drop, return, Mana Crypt, Soul Ring, Mox Diamond, discarding that. We still have 1 floating off the Mana Crypt. Tap to cast that, and tap to cast a Magus of the Moon. Turn 1 Magus of the Moon is a really good play for the fact that now all your opponent's fetches are mountains, so all their lands are mountains. And yeah, this is an incredible start. This is a very lucky start. This is obviously something that's going to happen very often. And yeah, so we'll move on to our next turn, and we have Elish Norn, but probably no way to cast it. Let's do our Mana Crypt. Flip a coin. Tails will take 1, 2, 3. And so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mana available. So I would say here, if you want to, there's 2 options. I'm probably just going to go Dark Confidant. Tap, tap. And then Trin for one of the few times you'd actually cast her, because at the moment, Drannith Magistrate, when your opponents really can't play lands, it's more important to just progress the board and start pressuring. So attack with this, you deal 2 damage to an opponent, and then you get to add we gotta search for this token, sadly, a 1/1 human soldier. So let's pull this up quickly. Yeah, great token. So you create this at the end of your turn. And so this is turn 2. We're going to start progressing the game forward. Swords to Plowshares allows for us to remove any creatures our opponents are going to cast. But as I said, turn 1 Magus of the Moon is an incredible play. Probably going to cast our other commander here. 1, 2, 3. We got to tap everything. Make sure we do flip for Mana Crypt. Don't take it. play this, and then bash each of our opponents with all of our creatures. Open, we even forgot the Start Confidant trigger, so we'll take one, and we'll get to put an additional card into our hand. And yeah, we'll play an Arid Mesa as just a mountain. But it's like, and then we attack our opponents with all of these creatures. Depends who you want to attack with each one of them. But this is kind of a great hand that we're looking for, and I'm going to end it on this note. So, this is the first episode of the Meta Breaker series. This is the deck description for a Winconless Mardu, and it's about Sylvar and Trin, and it pressuring our opponents with a lot of creatures, specifically stacks creatures, as you can see with Blood Moon and Traneth Magistrate. Trying to win the game by beating our opponents down and stopping them from comboing off with cards like Ad Nauseam. So, thank you guys for watching, and hope you enjoyed.